السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. أهلا وسهلا بحضراتكم مرة تانية وفيديو جديد على ماتفرج. زي ما كنت حكيت في فيديو سابق إني عملت لقاء مع شخصية يعني لطيفة جدا، حابب إن أنا أشاركه مع حضراتكم، وهو جاستن توملينسون. وده واحد من المدربين الكوتشز، اشتغل فترة في مؤسسة فرانكلين كوفي اللي هي كانت اندماج ما بين شركتين، شركة ستيفن كوفي المشهورة بتاعت السفن هابتس، والناس اللي ليها علاقة بأي حاجة ليها علاقة بالتنمية البشرية أكيد عدى عليها الكتاب ده، وشركة فرانكلين كويست اندمجوا مع بعض وعملوا فرانكلين كوفي. الشركة اللي بيشتغل فيها جاستن اشتغل فيها 10 سنين وبعدين سابهم وانطلق لوحده، فتح شوية شركات بتاعة تدريب وموارد بشرية، بيعمل استشارات في شركات كبيرة في موضوع الموارد البشرية، وتحديدا في تحويل تفكير الموظفين اللي في الشركة من مجرد موظفين لناس أصحاب رسالة. وللسبب ده جابوه عندنا في الشركة وقابلته في واحدة من ورش العمل وقلت له والله أنا عندي الناس بتاعتي ماي اودينس ممكن يكونوا مهتمين جدا بالموضوع ده، خصوصا ان اغلب المتابعين بتوعي اصلا عايشين لهدف وعايشين لرساله، وللاسف خلال ال10 سنين اللي فاتوا الرساله بتاعتهم دي اخذت كذا قفا، منهم اللي بقى تايه مش عارف يعمل ايه، ومنهم اللي قرر خلاص بلا رساله بلا بطيخ وانا هعيش لنفسي. فقال لي والله مش غلط، خلينا نعمل قعده كده ونصورها ونشوف ايه اللي هيبقى مفيد ليها. طبعا هو ما بيتكلمش عربي، القعده كلها بالانجليزي، والمفروض ان شاء الله ان احد الاصدقاء هيساعد في ترجمه الحلقه. واول سؤال سالته له قلت له يعني لو ينفع تعرف نفسك للناس المتابعين، وايه اللي يديلك الاثوريتي يعني او السلطه انك انت تتكلم في الموضوع اللي هتتكلم فيه ده. الراجل طبعا تواضعا يعني ما جابش سيره ان هو واحد من الناس المهمه في موضوع الكوتشنج ده، واتكلم ان هو راجل صاحب رساله.
Maybe I could just share a couple of things about me that your audience might be interested to know where I come from.
Please do.
So, most people ask me, do you have formal training for what you're doing, because you're working with some of the top companies in the world and their executive teams and helping them to grow their own individual and their team effectiveness. So, where does that come from and what training did you get? And my answer is pretty simple. Well, I'm kind of a cowboy, I just love people, and it comes naturally for me to want to support and grow people and teams. And so that's a little bit about me. I think the topic that we wanted to discuss today was this concept of finding your horizon, and especially how do you find it if you can't see it and it seems foggy or even dark. Ali, the reason I like the concept of a horizon, which is that your horizon is always on the move, the reason I like that is because it gives the opportunity for things to not turn out how we thought they might. And if you think about your horizon always being on the move, the closer you get to it, the more perspective, the more knowledge, the more insight, the more experience you have. And with that insight and with that knowledge, it's going to shift. It's like if you've ever been climbing, like hiking in the mountains, and you think, oh, I'm almost at the top. And then the closer you get to the top, you realize, oh, that wasn't the top. It goes down and back up again. Well, that could be discouraging because you're tired and you think, gosh, I thought we were at the top. And now I realize it's not only not the top, but getting to the top is even more technical than I thought. And I was recently sharing this concept with a CEO of a biotech company from South Africa. And she told me a little bit about her experience. And one of the statements she made that I just love, she goes, Justin, I never lose because I always learn. And whatever we've been through in life, there's been learning, there's been experience, and we have this choice to just let that learning and experience slip away or to tap into it to find our next horizon. So for me, the concept of a horizon, it's different than the classical mission or this idea that you have to name your life purpose and, declare what you're going to do, and then you can't deviate until you've achieved it. This is a different one. This is it's going to shift and pivot and grow and change along the way. And that's actually part of the exciting part. So
ابتدى في الاول بيحكي جاستن عن الكونسبت نفسه او الفكره بتاعه الهورايزون او الافق. ايه موضوع الافق ده؟ وبيحكي الفرق ما بينه وما بين انك انت يبقى عندك هدف محدده وانا رايح احقق الهدف ده. قال الحقيقه لا، موضوع الافق ده مختلف شويه. الافق ده انك بتسعى في اتجاه انت شايفه هو ده اللي انت عايز توصل له، لكن في نفس الوقت في مرونه كبيره قوي. ممكن بعد ما بتقرب منه تكتشف ان مش هو ده اللي انت كنت عايز توصل له، انت عايز توصل لحاجه ابعد منه، او توصل تبقى شايف الهدف قدامك وانت عمال تطلع، فجاه تلاقي نفسك ان الطريق اللي انت ماشي فيه ده مش هيوديك للقمه اللي انت عايزها، ده لسه قبل ما توصل في زحليقه هتخش فيها وبعدين توصل للقمه. قال علشان كده فكره الهورايزون دي وانك انت بتراجع الافق بتاعك من وقت للتاني ممكن تكون اهم بكتير من فكره ان يبقى عندك هدف محدد عايز توصل له وعمال تجري وراه والهدف ده هدف ثابت. لان في الحقيقه وانت في الطريق علشان توصل للهدف ده افكارك وخبراتك وحياتك كلها بتتغير وبتتبدل مع الوقت. ويمكن انا شايفه قريب قوي من الكلام اللي احنا بنحكيه عن الثوره. كان بالنسبه لنا الطريق واضح، نخلص من مبارك كده حققنا الهدف بتاعنا. الحقيقه اكتشفنا ان الموضوع فيه افق وفيه مشوار طويل، وان مع الوقت اهدافنا اللي كنا عايزين نوصل لها ابتدت تختلف وتتغير، ومحتاجه انها تختلف وتتغير، ومحتاجه ان احنا نبص لها بشكل مختلف.
I guess my feeling in knowing just the basic context that you're giving me is, wow, imagine all the experience, imagine all of the learning, even if it's disappointment, it's still learning. And wouldn't it be a pity if that evaporated? Well, let me share with you a short story about finding your horizon, because I think the first step in finding your horizon is to stand up. And let me explain what I mean. The person that taught me about horizons is an artist, a philosopher named Peter Sipe. He recently passed away, but he had this amazing ability to help people see their horizon. And my experience with him was, I didn't know him at the time. One of my business partners had suggested we go to Greece and meet with him because he could be helpful in our endeavor to start a new company. And I didn't want to go. I'm like saying to my business partner, look, we've done this business. We know how to do it. We don't need Peter to do what we need to do. Long story short, he convinced me to go. And I showed up at his home in Greece in his art studio. And he started sharing this concept of a horizon. And I was this person that wasn't very teachable. I thought I knew everything I needed to know. And so it didn't take me very long to annoy him and have him feel like, okay, let's teach this guy something. So what he did is he outside of his art studio, he had these two double doors that went out onto a deck, except for the deck wasn't built yet. And it was just dirt and weeds. And he said, hey, Justin, why don't you step down in that dirt and weeds? I want to show you something. And then he had me crouch down. He said, I want you to put your hands on the ground, but don't let your knees go to the ground. So I'm sitting there hovered on the ground and my knees weren't touching. And he's like, what do you see? And I said, well, I see the dirt and the weeds, and there's an ant on my hand that's probably going to crawl up my arm and bite me. And he said, how comfortable are you? And I'm like, I'm not comfortable at all. And then he said, okay, after letting me suffer for a minute, he said, go ahead and slowly stand up. And when I stood up, he said, what do you see now? And now I could see the sea, I could see the ships and the sailboats and people playing on the beach and people walking in the city. And what was really amazing to me is I could hear all these sounds of adventure. And he's like, wow, what options do you have? And where would you like to go today? And how would you like to spend your time? And then this master teacher really taught me by basically helping me see. He said, most people spend their life down on their hands and knees, where all they can see is what's right in front of them. And it's not very comfortable. And as soon as they stand up, they see all kinds of new options. So the first step of seeing our horizon is to get off of our hands and knees, where all as we see is what's right in front of us, especially if what's right in front of us is failure. How do we stand up and see the whole landscape and start to ask ourselves the question, what fascinates us? What's interesting to us? So of all the possibilities, what is it that attracts me the most? The next idea, the next opportunity, and start to look beyond ourselves, because actually that's the other point. I've noticed that when people, myself included, are down on our hands and knees, it usually is revealed through a self-focus. So that was my problem going into Peter's house. I could only see myself. I was only concerned about what was good for me and not seeing the bigger picture. And standing up allows us to see beyond ourselves and start to connect to something bigger than ourselves. So, how do people find their horizon? It's to stand up and start seeing beyond yourself and start seeing what could be possible. And that's probably the experience that your crew felt at one stage. And then when they got to the top of the mountain, they realized, oh, dang, that's not the top. It actually goes down and back up again. What? We're not finished.
انا طبعا شارح له ان الناس كتيره من اللي متابعه القناه دي من الثوار، ناس شاركت في الثوره، شافت دم، شافت عذاب، شافت سجون. ال10 سنين اللي فاتوا والفتره اللي فاتت من بدايه الربيع العربي، واحنا شفنا خبرات ما شافوهاش ناس في اجيال، يعني 50 و60 سنه شفناهم احنا في 10 سنين. فشرحت له الكلام ده. في الحته دي بيحكي ان يعني كميه الخبرات دي حرام انها تروح وتضيع من غير ما الناس تتعلم منها. وحكى حكايه مهمه قوي يمكن ليها رمزيات كتير. حكايه لمدرب ليه قعدوا على ايده وركبه وقال له انت شايف ايه؟ فقال له مش شايف حاجه غير تراب وساخه ونمله هتطلع على دراعي غالبا هتعضني دلوقتي. فقال له ارجع اقف تاني. بص شاف من فوق السور اللي كان في البيت اللي كان فيه، شاف الدنيا والناس رايحه وجايه. وبعدين بيربط ما بين ده وما بين قد ايه الواحد لما بيبقى فاشل او بيبقى عنده قصر نظر قد ايه بيتحول للانانيه، انه ما يبقاش شايف غير نفسه. يمكن دي حاجه احنا شفناها بعيننا بعد العلقه اللي خدتها الثورات بتاعت الربيع العربي. ناس كتير قوي من اللي شاركوا فيها وصلوا لحاله يلا نفسي، انا شايف غير نفسي بس. والسبب الاساسي في راي جاستن وفي رايي انا كمان الشخصي هو ان احنا لسه قاعدين على ركبنا مش شايفين قدامنا غير التراب. ويمكن ده اللي كنت بحكي فيه لو حضراتكم تفتكروا المقطع اللي كان في وسط سلام ما بعده سلام. الفكره بتاعت ان احنا محتاجين نطلع بره اللعبه اللي احنا قاعدين فيها دي ونشوفها من بعيد شويه، ان الحياه دي كلها ما هي الا اختبار احنا موجودين فيه بنجاوب على اسئله بغض النظر عن النتائج ومدى اهميتها، الا ان هي في الاخر اختبار. والحياه دي كلها له ولعب زي ما ربنا سبحانه وتعالى وصفها. وهنا تيجي اهميه ان احنا نقف على رجلنا زي ما جاستن بيحكي ونشوف ابعد من الصوره اللي احنا شايفينها بتاعت التراب والنمل والزلط اللي هو كان فيه.
And yeah, so for me it's to stand up and see beyond yourself and start to explore what fascinates and interests you. For me there's a few things, and maybe it starts with what we see and trying to reframe what we see and how we feel. And that's extremely difficult if you're a medical doctor or a trained professional that's now in an hourly paid job just trying to survive and put food on the table. I got to imagine that's very, very, discouraging. And it makes me wonder, how did people like Nelson Mandela feel when he's in prison and probably felt total failure, no hope. And I like to think it's not over till it's over. So maybe the experiences that we've been through have actually just prepared us for something bigger that we can't see yet. I think if you study any gold medalist in the Olympics, in any sport, any field, if you really look into their life, they had significant failures and setbacks that actually gave them the courage, the drive, the stamina, the capability to actually win a gold medal. We only see, the end result, but that end result is like iteration 77 after they've been through failure after failure, setback after setback. So for me, the idea that I would have for your friends would be, is there a way to reframe where they're at right now and see it differently? And that seems almost like naive, here, almost like naive. Yeah, right. Well, you don't realize, Justin, that I was here and now I'm all the way here. And that feels pretty hopeless. Yeah, they could be right. I definitely haven't experienced that. I've had setbacks, but probably not to that degree.
بعديها سألته يعني ازاي نقدر نعمل موضوع الزوم اوت ده، ازاي نقدر نقف على رجلينا وقلت له ناس من اللي بتتابع هنا، يعني اللي كان دكتور واللي كان مهندس واللي كان طالب في كلية من الكليات يعني القمة، وفجأة لقى نفسه مرمي في بلد تانية يشتغل فيها شغلانات كحيتي خالص علشان بس يقدر ياكل ويشرب. الناس دي تقدر ازاي تعمل الزوم اوت وتقف على رجلها والكلام الجميل اللي انت بتقوله ده؟ في الحقيقة الراجل يعني لم ينكر ان هو يعني ما عندوش خبرة قوي يقدر يجاوب بيها على سؤال زي ده، بس يعني ان هو راجل يعني شاف فشل في حياته بس مش للدرجة دي. قال يعني ممكن نفكر زي المناضلين الكبار نيلسون مانديلا وغيره، او حتى الرياضيين اللي كسبوا ميداليات دهب. غالبا لحظة النصر اللي احنا شفناها دي كانت المحاولة رقم 77 في حياتهم اللي حاولوا فيها ينجحوا، وكل المرات ال 77 مرة اللي فاتوا كانوا فشل، ودي كانت أول مرة نجاح اللي احنا شفناها. وبالتالي الفشل ده المفروض إنه يبقى جزء من التجربة اللي توجهنا للنجاح. وأكد تاني إن الكلام ده يعني إيه، كلام جاي من واحد يعني ما شافش بهدلة قوي يعني للدرجة دي.
Well, my experience, Ali, is that if you can't see it, you can't do it. So it does start with being able to see it. And that's like a heavy lift. That's a almost heroic test or task for someone that has had such significant setback and even mental emotional trauma. I mean, again, that's not a world I've ever been part of or lived in, so I really have no idea how to relate to it other than what I see on the movies and think, oh, that must be bad. So, I'm inspired by the human spirit because there are people that are able to come back from that. How, I don't really know, but it does happen. I'm reminded of a story. If it's not useful, just cut it out. But the other thing that happened to me when I first met Peter, and he kind of had me stand up and taught me about, how to find a horizon. He made a statement where he said, the hardest part of reaching your horizon is going to be to let go of all the baggage you have. He said, so what baggage do you need to let go of to really reach that horizon? And it was fascinating because we gave him our answers and he was literally disappointed in us. He's like, those are the weakest answers I think I've ever heard. Why don't we take the rest of the day off, go walk on the beach and come back tomorrow with a real answer? And I remember for me, I was kind of like, wait a minute, we're paying you. You're letting us go 3 hours early. And my thinking went from, I think the answer that I gave was, well, if we're really going to reach that horizon for this business, we're going to have to prioritize. We're going to have to let go of some of the things we have in mind and just focus. And that's where he said, crap answer. So what I came back with the next day was, you know what, if we're really going to be successful in this business, I've got to let go of the betrayal I felt from my last business partner, the hurt that I felt, and the distrust that I have of current partners. Not because anything about them, but because of my past. And so, he taught us that until you can let go of those mindsets, those beliefs, those scars, it's going to be hard for you to advance. And so for me, the message there is we all have baggage, and some extreme baggage like what you're describing, but either way, whether it's little baggage or big baggage, if we want to go to a new horizon, we've got to figure out how to drop the baggage, because we can't take it all with us.
بيحكي جاستن ان برضه تجربه حصلت ما بينه وبين الشخص اللي كان يعني بيساعده، وبيحكي على تجربه عملها معاهم. قال لهم يعني ايه، فكروا كده وقولوا لي لو حابين تغيروا حاجه في الشغل بتاعكم هتغيروا ايه؟ فكل واحد جاوب على شويه اجابات كده، فقال لهم ده اجابه زباله. الاجابه دي تروحوا كده شويه وترجعوا لي تاني تحكوا لي ايه الحاجه اللي محتاجين تغيروها علشان الشغل بتاعكم ده يتغير. قالوا الحقيقه الحاجه اللي انا محتاج اغيرها هو تغيير تفكيري ومحاوله ان انا انسى خبرات سيئه حصلت لي، انسى الخيانه اللي ممكن تكون حصلت من شريك معين، انسى التقصير اللي حصل من شريك تاني، واني اتخلص من حموله المشاعر اللي عندي. وبيقترح جاستن ان ممكن دي تكون حاجه من الحاجات اللي احنا محتاجينها، نرمي شويه شنط من الاحمال اللي احنا شايلينها على كتافنا من خبراتنا السابقه. مش معنى ان احنا نرميها ان احنا ما نتعلمش منها، نتعلم منها، بس ما نخليهاش عائق قدامنا في ان احنا نتغير او نغير الطريقه اللي نتعامل بيها مع المشاكل اللي تواجهنا. وهيبدا من هنا جاستن يبتدي يتكلم بالتفصيل عن ازاي تقدر تحدد الهورايزون بتاعك او تحدد الافق بتاعك.
As we're all looking for meaning and purpose in life, and we're trying to figure out, what do I want to contribute to? It's less about the role we have or the title we have, and more about the contribution that we can make. And one of the things that I found in helping many people find their horizon is to help them pay attention to, what are the things in the world? If it's the healthcare industry, what are the trends in the healthcare industry that interest them, that catch their attention, and they find themselves reading about and exploring about and Googling about? If it's politics, what are the things that are trending, that are interesting, exciting, etc. to me? So I guess that first point is that, what do you think about when you have nothing to think about, right? What is it that you are fascinated with or interested in? Start to move in that direction and explore that a bit. So whatever's naturally pulling at you, that would be the first idea. And then the second one is, we look at strengths and weaknesses, and most people are trained to focus on their weakness and what do they need to fix about themselves. And for me, this is a pretty useless endeavor. If you think about it in terms of football, so the World Cup is going on right now. If you have the world-class goalkeeper, do you care if they're a striker? Like, when they come to practice, do you train them in striking? No. You focus on their strength and what they're extraordinary at. And you don't worry about their striking ability. And it's the same thing for us. It's, what are our strengths? And for me, how I define strengths are really looking for what people enjoy, because usually people get good at something because they do it a lot, and they do it a lot because they enjoy it. And so this idea of what fascinates me and what do I enjoy, those are the two clues when seeking out your horizon. So maybe those are a couple of hints that can help people start to imagine again what they might want to pursue. So that's nice on standing up and figuring out what you're interested in and what you enjoy. But what if I try that and I don't see it? It's still too foggy or too dark, and I don't see a horizon. The question I love to ask people is, outside of work, where do you get your energy? And I call these areas your personal power plant. So, people will tell me, well, I get energy from my family, I get energy from my friends, I get energy from nature or sports or reading or art or, whatever it is. We all have things that give us energy. If you don't see your horizon, the best place to start is in your own personal power plant generating energy. Like, I know what the condition of somebody's power plant is when I see them at work. If people show up at work and they're easily irritated, disappointed, frustrated, they use words like, I'm tired, I'm burned out, I'm exhausted, and they get stuck in the small dramas in their work life. When that's the case, I know their power plant is totally broken. It's old and rusty, and they're not doing the things in their private life that give them energy. Whereas on the other side, people that show up at work, bold, optimistic, decisive, they take on the big challenges, and most of all, people want to be part of whatever it is they're working on, then I know that their power plant is in good running condition. And the way that I can verify that is to just look in their calendar with them and look for patterns and rituals. So, for example, you'll see patterns like, oh, Saturday mornings is as a family, we go for a hike, or I get together with my friends and do this activity or that activity. And usually every Sunday afternoon, we're having a family dinner, or, I really like to go to the gym. So, 3 days a week, I see that the ritual, the pattern in the agenda, or I really like online gaming. And every Tuesday night I have a session with my friends from around the world. So the more pattern, the more ritual you see, the more that power plant is in working order. And so for me, the first thing to do, if those first tips that we gave of standing up and looking at what you enjoy, if that's not working, the next thing is to start to evaluate, what's my personal power plant? Where do I get energy? And what am I doing to fill my life with those things that give me energy? Because it takes energy to find and pursue your horizon. The other thing is I like the word legacy. And your personal legacy is bigger than your professional contribution. Your professional contribution, or I call it brand, is how you want to be known for your professional contribution. Your legacy is how you want to be remembered for your whole life. The best way I know to help people think about that is when they imagine it's their 86th birthday and their friends, family, loved ones, even if they've died, magically come back and celebrate their life and offer a toast. What do you want people to say about your life in the end? And being really clear about who you are and what your life is about. That tends to help people have perspective on who's most important and what's most important in their life. So even if I'm failing miserably in my professional life, maybe there's something even more important to me, my family, my friends, that I can contribute to, I can make a difference for, I can add value to. And in the end, nobody ever puts on their tombstone, I wish I would have spent more time at the office, right? So it may be that the most important people and the most important things you're doing are still there, even if you've lost some movement or some professional contribution.
4 مربعات حكى عنهم جاست. المربع الاولاني هو ايه الحاجه اللي نفسك تعملها، ايه الحاجه اللي لما تبقى مش بتفكر في حاجه ومفيش حاجه شغلاك بتلاقي اوتوماتيك مخك ابتدى يفكر فيها، حاجه بتنبسط لما بتفكر فيها وتفكر انك بتعملها وبتستمتع بعملها وتحب انك انت تعملها بشكل متكرر. يعني في افكار مش لطيفه بتهيألي الناس تفكر فيها. المهم انا بتكلم على الشغل وبتكلم عن حتى كمان العمل العام والعمل في السيلز. ده المربع الاولاني. المربع الثاني اللي تحتيها هي ايه مواطن القوه فينا. كل واحد فينا يفكر ايه الحاجات اللي هو متميز فيها ومش زيه زي اي حد فيها، الحاجه اللي هو يعتبر مختلف ومتميز فيها. يركز في مواطن القوه دي بشكل كبير قوي، لان اغلب الناس بتفكر في العكس، انها بتركز في مواطن الضعف مش في مواطن القوه. وده مثال لطيف ان يعني لو حارس مرمى في فريق، اكيد لما بيروح كل يوم يتمرن مع الفريق ده مش بيمرنوه على الهجوم وازاي يشوط الكوره، بيمرنوه على ازاي يبقى حارس مرمى كويس. وبالتالي التركيز الاكبر لازم يكون على مواطن القوه بتاعتنا ازاي ننميها، مش على مواطن الضعف. المربع الثالث هو مربع المحطه بتاعت الشحن، محطه الكهرباء بتاعتك، منين بتجيب الطاقه بتاعتك؟ ايه الحاجه اللي لما بتعملها بتحس انك انت يعني ايه ريفرشت كده وفوقت ورجعت تاني لوضعك الطبيعي؟ حاجه بقى دي ايا كانت، اصحاب، خروج، فسحه، خروج للطبيعه، فيديو جيمز، ايا كانت الحاجه اللي بتشحنها. المربع الرابع وهو الليجاسي، ايه الحاجه اللي عايز تتركها من وراك، الارث اللي عايز تسيبه وراك، والناس لما تسمع اسمك تفتكر عنك الحاجات الطيبه. الاربع مربعات دول ببساطه هم اللي بيشكلوا الهورايزون بتاعك او الافق بتاعك. وكون ان عندك 4 حاجات معناها ان لو في واحده فيهم خستعت ففي عندك حاجات تانية تعيش علشانها. فده ببساطه الاكسرسايز او التمرين اللي محتاج كل واحد فينا يعمله علشان يبتدي يرسم شكل الافق بتاعه او الهورايزون بتاعه. وبعديها ابتدى يتكلم جاستن في قضيه مهمه قوي، هو الارتباط بالمبادئ مش بالمنتجات او بالحركات او بالاحزاب او غيرها.
And one of my mentors in life, Stephen Covey, taught the principle, the concept that how important it is to live a principle-centered life. Base your life on principles, because principles don't change. They have predictable outcomes, like gravity is a principle. If you step off a bridge, you're going to fall. That's predictable. And principles in Live with Intent, the book that we wrote, there's 12 principles that have predictable outcomes. For example, the first principle is trust. And if you ask yourself, what's it like to work with somebody you don't trust? The answers are obvious. It's like a principle, the outcome's predictable. Or what's it like to work with people you do trust? Again, the answers are predictable. And so the importance of centering your life on principles give that security and that stability to know that principles don't change and they're predictable. Whereas if I center my life on my political aspiration or on my professional aspiration, that's not stable, not secure. There's a quote from a guy named Eric Fromm that says, if I am what I have and what I have is lost, what am I? So if I center my whole life on a movement and that movement is lost, then I'm lost. That's not a good idea. It's better to center your life on principles that don't change and that can't be lost, basically.
زي ما حكيت جاستن، هو يعني ادفايزر او كونسلتنت او يعني مستشار لشركات كتير في موضوع التنميه البشريه، موضوع الكوتشنج، شركات اغلبها مالتي ناشونال وشركات كبيره يعني، وبالتالي هو محتاج يعني بشكل كبير قوي مع الهيد اوفيسز والهيد كوارترز بتاعت شركات كتير، وبيقول ملحوظه كده لطيفه قوي. طب ما تيجوا نشوف.
Well, the other reflection that I have just in the global companies that I'm working with is the amount of leadership that's coming from Egyptians no longer living in Egypt, whether exiled or moving on their own accord. They still have the same roots, and some of the most phenomenal visionary leaders that I know are exactly your profile, Ali. Look at the team you're on right now. How many people are leading in the organization where you are coming from Egypt? It's amazing how many, and they're everywhere. You guys are taking over the world, my friend.
Maybe this is one of the benefits of what's happening in the country. So people are fleeing across the world, and
yeah, maybe, and their talent is being discovered, and you are standing up and you are finding new horizons and new ways to meaningfully contribute. And I'm thinking of one really senior finance executive who has huge global responsibilities, and yet what does he do in his private time? He does like you're doing. He's funding small startups and educational businesses to train and educate people back in his home country, back in Egypt, back in your home country. And he hasn't just taken all of his gold and his big house and his nice car and all the wonderful things that he's not down on his hands and knees just enjoying that all himself. He's spending a ton of time, energy, and money to give back to his roots. How inspiring is that? I think it's not easy, and I don't even in my life, I don't even know how hard it is, but I'm sure it's not easy, and it's possible. Somehow it's possible. There are people, amazing human people, who do it. Wow. Hats off to them.